Fucky Live guitar music that comes out every Monday through Friday, live at 5 on the Evil FB Network, Rumble, YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in iNewsWire on Rumble, Roy Blecker. You'll see my nice smiling, shining face, get all our archives, check back on the show, roll through, do some fact checking, have some fun with it all across the board. We're going to get into the governor released his May revise coming up. They need to pass a budget for the state of California by the end of June, per the law. That don't mean they have to do it, just as the law says they do. We'll break down the almost 2 hours of complete BS delivered as only Gavin Newsom can do it. We'll get to that in a second. But we got our first arrest of a California governor candidate. Steve Colbeck has been charged with the cover-up of his OnlyFans fiance. Yes, the Steve Colbeck, there you see on CNN with Alex Michelson, or maybe it was on Fox 11, I don't know which one. I think it was on CNN. Could have been Fox 11. When he was announcing run for governor, billionaire, actually sounded semi-sane, some of his policies, and criticizing Gavin Newsom, which is absolutely 100% justified. He is in the timeshare biz. That's how he supposedly made his billions, which some people believe is a very sketchy industry to begin with. But as soon as the spy Eric Swalwell started to gain some traction, he bailed out of the race and endorsed Eric Swalwell. Okay. That was a little bit sketchy. But then the whole spy Swalwell thing exploded. But let's get into the Marla Tejas report on Fox 11 with the arrest and charging of ex-governor candidate Steve Colbeck.
The founder and former candidate for governor is arrested. Investigators say Stephen Klubeck tried to intimidate witnesses to protect his fiancée, a penthouse model accused of preying on wealthy sugar daddies in a high-stakes scheme. Fox 11's Gina Silva, a lot there, right, is live in Beverly Hills with the story. Gina?
Christine, these are very serious allegations. If he is convicted on all counts, he could face up to 11 years in state prison. And this is a man who just 1 month ago told us that betrayal of trust is unforgivable.
Don't bust the trust. You bust the trust, okay? You don't exist in...
Right there. Steve Colbeck. Now, I ain't saying he is. He looks like he's on something. He looks totally different than the candidate you've seen portrayed when he was running for office. He does look like the typical guy, though, that would be on OnlyFans, although he's got enough money to buy, or let's say, propose and have a fiancé from OnlyFans. And that's where the story got interesting, is because we found out his fiancée, girlfriend, whatever the hell he was going to marry, he's living with him and that, was a young lady who not only was on OnlyFans, but allegedly or fleecing older men out of their money and robbing them, promising who knows what. More from Colbeck.
My life.
Those words may now be coming back to haunt Stephen Klubeck, who is facing serious allegations of his own. The former California gubernatorial candidate was arrested on 4 counts, accused of trying to intimidate witnesses expected to testify against his fiancée, Adva Lavi, also known online as Mia Ventura, the very same woman accused of using dating apps to pose as a girlfriend, gain access to wealthy men's homes, and steal cash, gold, and high-end designer goods.
If 3 people come to court and say, look, I was intimidated, I was harassed, I was threatened, that becomes a pretty compelling case.
Criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Dmitry Gorin, who is not involved in this investigation, says emotion may have played a role in this case.
You think? Emotion may have played a role in this case, I think. Yeah, Klubeck obviously has enough money not to only just, he doesn't have to drop a couple $100 on OnlyFans, which is another thing. He's got, if he's a billionaire, well, he can have the OnlyFans model as his main squeeze, fiance, girlfriend, or whatever. Witness intimidation, as you said, Mia Ventura, as she goes by as her stage name, had been implicated in, sucking in rich old men and then allegedly robbing them blind of money and gold and valuables. Here we go.
But sometimes emotions get the better of you. And if he had a very close relationship with Miss Lavie, and he wanted to help her, and he believed that perhaps she was innocent, and he was actually acting in a way to help her to try to clear her name, perhaps he overstepped.
According to the felony complaint, the alleged intimidation spanned 3 months, from December of last year through March. Prosecutors allege Klubeck used force and threats to try to silence 3 separate witnesses in his fiance's case. And in a 4th count, a misdemeanor, Klubeck's accused of making annoying phone calls, including threats of injury to another man connected to the case.
My name's Gina Silva. I'm with Bus 11 News, and I want to give him a chance to respond.
We could give him the message, but he's not here at the moment.
Klubeck was one of disgraced Congressman Eric Swalwell's biggest supporters until that campaign fell apart.
And why did old Eric the Spy Swalwell's campaign fall apart? Oh, was it because of sexual peccadillos, rape charges that he's potentially facing? Young interns of his claiming that he did very inappropriate things to them. And Klubeck is caught up in this. I guess, as they say, birds of a feather flock together. I don't know.
Over sexual assault allegations.
Okay.
Klubeck told Armat Seedorf integrity was non-negotiable.
It's about being ethical and moral and telling the truth.
At the end of the day, the government is going to have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he intimidated, threatened, or tried to pay off witnesses. And until they do that, he's presumed innocent.
Klubeck's attorney issued the following statement: "These charges are false, and we look forward to our day in court." Klubeck is out on $300,000 bail. Arraignment has not been scheduled yet. As for his fiancée, Adva Lavie, she is due back in court next Monday. Reporting from Beverly Hills, I'm...
So we have our first California governor candidate, Steve Klubeck, charged. Eric Swalwell, most likely facing charges. Maybe Javier Baccaria in the whole Dana the Hammer Williamson, Sean McCluskey bagging $250,000 out of his campaign account. And he didn't know anything about it or why it was done. Michael Trujillo, longtime associate of Antonio Villaraigosa, who said, hey, the Eric the Spy Swalwell sexual picadillos are going to be coming out en masse, long before they did, has been hinting that Javier Baccaria's got trouble too. Dana the Hammer Williamson joined Sean McCluskey in accepting a plea deal today of that. We shall see where the evidence goes. On that, Javier Baccaria says, I know nothing. He's Sergeant Schultzing it from Hogan's Heroes, if you're not old enough to know what that means. He's denying anything like Klubeck and Swalwell and everybody else that gets charged. 3 governor candidates, all on the Democratic side, either facing or having charges filed against them in either suspected misappropriation of campaign money, raping of women, intimidating witnesses. And California is turning flat into one big, the biggest clown show in the history of the world. We'll catch up on some more stuff, but mainly we'll dig into the governor's May revise of the 26-27 budget. As we said, we'll break it down like nobody's business. 2 hours, old Gav. He loves the camera. 2 hours he spent in front of the camera saying, how great thou art. I may be the greatest governor, not only in the history of California, but in the history of governors of all kind. We'll see how true that is. I suspect you know the answer. We're going to get into the Governor Gulag, Gavin Newsom, and his, oh, aren't I great going out the door rendition that he put out. This is how he kicked her off. On the May revise of his last budget, 26-27, oh, glory to me. You all should bow down at the throne of Gavin Newsom. Here we go.
The fiscal health and economic condition of the state of California. And I will begin as we should. Dominance. That's the way to describe partnerships in Sandia Labs, Lawrence Livermore Labs, Lawrence Berkeley Labs, all of that research and development. He wants to cut the national situation. That would include, by definition, the $2 billion of grants. He's looking to, he said, honestly and openly, about America's financial situation. That would wants to cut the national, pushing out the boundaries of discovery, partnerships in Sandia Labs, Lawrence Livermore Labs, Lawrence Berkeley Labs, all of that research and development. He wants to cut the National Institute of Health by 40%. He wants to cut the National Science Foundation by 57%. President Xi is celebrating Donald Trump's budget. No wonder he had a wonderful first day in China. $32 billion.
So he starts out, it's all Trump's fault. Everything that's wrong with California, the bullet train, COVID, National Institute for Health, grants cuts, the $50 billion in unemployment fraud that we still haven't paid back. How do you get a balanced budget when you still owe the federal government $30 billion that you gave away, Gavin Newsom, in unemployment fraud? One program. Innovation. DMV, we were supposed to redo the whole system on that. The computers are 30 years old. Failure. Even worse than 911 system. Oh, same thing. It's antiquated. That's the reason you can't get through a 911. $500 million on that computer system. They plug it in and it doesn't work. How's that for innovation, Gavin Newsom? The bullet train. $32 billion and counting when it was supposed to be done 6 years ago. San Francisco to LA. For $30-some billion. It's supposed to have been running for 6 years. Not 1 inch of track from here to Bakersfield, to Wasco, to Merced, to San Francisco has been laid. $20 billion spent. But of course, it's all Trump's fault. This maroon may be the biggest piece of work in all of recorded history as far as politicians go. You can't hardly get any worse than this guy. There it is. You can't. Scott Bassett. We're quoting the Washington Post. Maybe the most discredited newspaper in the world. Trump's faced massive new costs under Trump budget cuts. Here we go. To 1.3 million Californians dropped from Medi-Cal. HR 1. We'll play the clips maybe tomorrow of J.D. Vance, Vice President in charge of fraud for Donald J. They're withholding, him and Oz were withholding in the Trump administration $1.3 billion of federal government subsidies on Medi-Cal because of fraud. Remember Gavin Newsom when Oz came out here on the hospice deal? Said, hey, look at what's going on. Oh, Oz is Trump, racist. Bill O'Reilly, racist. Well, you going to agree with your buddy Corey, the Crook Jackson? Oh, Bill O'Reilly's a white nationalist. That's our U.S. attorney out here who's been charging on fraud on these hospices all over the place. We don't talk about the impact of you just giving our money away. What, 800 hospices? The federal government and Oz and J.D. Vance and Trump came in and cut them off. Only 20 out of 80 have complained or said, hey, we're legitimate businesses. 780 of them haven't even said a peep. If you were running a legitimate hospice and people in their last days were in their last care and Donald Trump shut off your money, you'd be screaming from the rooftops. Yet this guy has the unmitigated gall to sit there and go, oh my goodness, we're going to fall apart. So the numbers are, we're still at $350 billion. The general slush fund, $250 billion. $250 billion could spend on whatever the majority of the government or the legislature says. They're claiming a balanced budget. As we said, how is the budget balanced when you're not dealing with $30 billion? Just in that we owe the federal government. Under the unemployment fraud you just gave away, you came in because you were getting criticized. People were sitting on day after day, 8 hours a day with the unemployment, who were legitimately out of work over COVID, over your stupid policies. And you didn't like the bad PR, so you walked in and told your staff just to prove everything. people from the Ukraine, people from China, Guatemala, people in prisons, on death row, in Georgia. Just pay them $30 billion, probably 50 billion total. We had to borrow $30 billion from the federal government that we got to pay back. How is that? How can you balance a budget? Using that. You can see the revenue volatility. The red line going up and down and up and down. That's the tax the rich system. Yeah, when the stock market's up, when real estate up, when people are selling, even though real estate is up, sales are not, so we're not getting those capital gains from real estate like we were. You saw COVID where it went down, it bounced up, now it's bouncing back down. That's why GAO says we have a structural deficit, even though he's claiming that we don't. Here's the big kicker. School spending. This is when he came in 7 years ago. $17,000 per student, which was totally ridiculous. That was double from what it just was 7 years prior. Was about 8,500. Now it was 17 in 2029. It's almost doubled again. 66% higher. $28,282 per student. A class of 30 kids, each classroom in California, that's about the average, $900,000. It's almost $1 million a year. Of that, your teacher's compensation package on that is about $150,000 a year. It's what the average teacher makes in California for 9 months of work. You prorate that out, that's almost $200,000 a year if they worked a full year. Yet, they claim the largest special education spending. Well, look at the crime syndicate here, closed down the only special education only school they had and just dispersed the kids throughout the regular system. Yet, they claim and in Gavin Newsom's own words, this has raised test scores, his words, not student achievement. When we are still, even with the increases they got last year slightly, first ones they've had since COVID, they're still behind student achievement in 19 when he came into office before COVID. Your kids, the average kid, TK through 12, less students at grade level, and it's only 40% statewide.
30 seconds.
Only 40% of our students statewide are at grade level, and this is some sort of great achievement. We'll pick up with more of this when we join the Mighty Mitt KMET 1490, as Jesse has said. We'll pick up more on this total debacle going on in California and why we need to change it, and change it fast. And we got that opportunity.
2 seconds. Here we go.
Better seize it in November.
Phone app today.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air. The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky live guitar music. Comes on every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the aforementioned AM band. Joining our vast video audience on the Evil FB Network YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in iNewsWire Roy Blecker. You'll see my nice smiling, shining face on that. Before we get to and pick up more on the fleecing we're getting in the California state budget, as pick up the stuff I dropped. We've got the first story, absolutely bizarre, that we had going forward in the lead story. We had our first arrest of a California governor's candidate in 2026, Steve Klubeck, who ran earlier, billionaire businessman, who got his billion supposedly in the timeshare industry, which some say is kind of a sketchy industry, but he made it. He was on Alex Michelson and stuff. It seemed like if he was even criticized, seemed like a fairly good guy, seemed like he was criticizing Gavin Newsom and the like, and wasn't going down the path of stupid Democrats. Well, Swalwell got in, started to take off, he dropped his campaign. Then the funny thing is, when Swalwell had the intern blow up, the sexual rape charges coming in, he was staying at Klubeck's house. He made his little, these charges are false, in Klubeck's house. Then Klubeck threw him out. We went through that. Channel 11, Fox did a good job of it. Now he's under arrest because his OnlyFans penthouse model girlfriend, fiance, as they say, who has been accused of stalking rich old men and promising them who knows what, and then stealing their money and gold and valuables and everything else throughout the Southland. He's engaged to her. Now he's being charged with witness intimidation. It sounds like from intimidating witnesses that were in this whole mix-up with Mia Ventura, the OnlyFans model, and his main squeeze. So it just goes to show you, you never, ever, ever can tell with these rats. But 98.7% of anybody that gets into politics, you got to put them on the suspect list of anything. And probably something in that list they have done. You always say this has got to be one, especially for the governor's race, this has got to be the most bizarre campaign, not only in California, but maybe in recorded politics history. Getting back to the California budget trials and Gulag Gavin Newsom, he tries to make the case and this, he doesn't tell you where the student achievement is for the 28 grand per student we're spending. Oh, the gains were 4 times larger than last year, which were like 0.1%. Science, 4 times more than math. He doesn't tell you English language, 50% of all kids, TK through 8, are not at grade level. At science, less than 20%. Only about 30% of our math students are at grade level. They should be making, it doesn't say percent, 2 times the gains of last year, which were infinitesimal. You can't, the gains that they made last year, if you put any gap between your fingers, my 2 fingers, that would be way too much. Like I say, they were in tenths of a percent. And when you're that low, you should be making 5, 10, 20% gains per year. With the amount of spending, double the spending since when he came off, since he came in office, almost 2 years ago. And the 6 years before that when he was lieutenant governor, tripling spending per student. We were at 8.7 back in 2012. 17,000 when he came into office, 28,000 now. And student achievement is barely the same as it was 15 years ago, despite a tripling of spending. It's absolutely incredible that you could sit there and lie and twist the statistics, paying down long-term liabilities. Again, he did not mention anything till the end under questions. When are you going to pay back the $30 billion we owe the federal government? Over you just giving $30 billion, maybe $50 billion between state and federal unemployment funds away during COVID. Oh, how do you balance how do we not have a $30 billion structural deficit? He claims it's zero. LAO says he's full of S, the Legislative Analyst's Office. They're trying to claim pension liabilities are better. But still, if you're 80% or less unfunded, your system is considered insolvent. CalPERS and CalSTRS are still under that, and the only reason they are is because they dropped the greeny-weeny BS and started investing back in oil companies so their portfolios are looking better. A responsible budget that supports most of our vulnerable Californians. Here we go. Again, he's claiming there's no structural deficit when there's no dealing with just the $30 billion. How do you have no structural deficit when the stupid train from hell, costs keep going up to $200 billion? You've not laid any tracks for it? You're obligated, if you're planning on finishing it like you had, you'll break the state. We couldn't tax people enough to pay for it. So we're getting more taxes, making big corporations pay their fair share. They're just tax collectors for the government. Those costs are passed on. Those caps of big corporation, business taxes are passed on to you, the end consumer, in increased prices, inflation. A digital software sales tax, conforming with other states, no streaming. So you know what? All of you that are looking at the 3x5 screen all day, they're planning on coming after you. Whether you're looking at Mia Ventura on the OnlyFans or whatever you're doing on there all day, get ready to pay more. So we can provide that service to the death row inmates in California at $190 billion as part of their perks. This stuff is absolutely incredible. They're going to reinstate the medical asset test, utilization management. He's claiming this is efficient, effective, and engaged. Oh my, you can almost tell. This one I'm going to have to dig into because they're claiming that public sector employees in California are the 36th lowest. I gotta look into that. Efficiencies and reductions. Modernized DMV failed. Streamlined procurements and AI-powered price comparisons failed. Expand state hiring reforms failed. Expedite CEQA processing failed. That's why housing prices are up the roof. Enhanced delivery IT projects through streamlining states' approval processes failed. The 911 system is the latest. $500 million, $500 million. Hit the switch. Done. Doesn't work. Results. Oh yeah, we live the results of every day. Highest gas prices, housing prices, vagrancy up the roof. Fast track permitting, tell that to the people of the Pacific Palisades or Altadena. Or Paradise Fire from yore long ago. Accelerated rebuilding, tell that to them. Cut erroneous regulations. Restricted price gouging on building materials. Extended property tax. Every one of these is BS. Wildfire Rebuilding Fund. They're still not clear-cutting the forest. One, so we could have lumber. So a 2x4 costs $1 like it used to instead of $8 a frickin' piece. And, you know, these fires, when they start, wouldn't have the frickin' fuel to burn down complete towns. Everything they've done and continue to do raises monthly mortgage costs, increases borrowing costs, increases the price of housing, and everything else. Of course, they go accountability, accountability, accountability. $2.29 billion in reserves. Well, that could be completely wiped out. Just on the unemployment fraud that we owe $30 billion to the federal government. There are no reserves. If the federal government demanded the money, they would have zero. He's claiming 39.964 set aside. And again, the lie of a zero structural deficit. The amount of stupidity, ridiculous crap, onerous, nonsense. Oh, we're going to stop Oh, we got plenty of money for Prop 36 to put people in prisons while they've let them out. Prisons' costs have exploded. $180,000 per prisoner. You know, the average in the United States for a state prisoner is $35,000. We're over 5 times higher than that. New Jersey is second at 82. We're or about 90. We're twice as expensive per prisoner of that, and we're turning them into country clubs for death row inmates. For crying out loud. Are getting porn. They can see Mia Ventura, Klubeck's girlfriend, fiance. And we're paying for it. We bought them new tablets so they don't have to strain their eyes on the old ones. We didn't get to any part of anything. I was rather disappointed. Almost an hour worth of questions to reporters, and they really didn't hammer his ass like they should have. I mean, they asked about it like the vagrants. But it was pretty softballish. They asked him about, I think it was Ashley Zoella, maybe. Dana the Hammer Williamson. No, it was somebody else, I think. But Dana the Hammer Williamson, his former chief of staff, who along with Sean, she pleaded guilty. She made a plea deal today. Sean McCluskey, Javier Bacari, is chief of staff, made a plea deal earlier for stealing, what, $250,000 from Bacari's accounts. He didn't know nothing. They were evil. I'm not playing him because I just can't stand to hear this complete narcissistic, it's all about me, F you, pointing your fingers. But he didn't know anything. He just saw that it that she had a plea deal. I don't know nothing about it. They didn't press him, or they only allowed one question, and they did allow a couple follow-ups at the end. And that was some of the reason the press couldn't get, because usually you get one question and a follow-up. So they kind of structured it to where you weren't getting any, the reporters had very little opportunity to really pin him down. They hit him again on the prisons, and he totally sidestepped it. $180,000 per prisoner. And if we're going to clean the streets of vagrants, and as we've already saw, Placer County and a couple up north, 85% of the vagrants on the street do not take the treatment. So you got to stick them in jail. We're closing down prisons and everybody's evil, and we turned San Quentin into a country club. As we ran the story from Chris Rufo and Haley Strack yesterday, their great investigative report on City Journal, outlining how we are paying for pornography for death row inmates. Because they might get out. It's really, really, in one case, just almost totally sickening. Except when you get down to the one part, and I hope you can find it because my We're gonna see you're gonna see where the real racists are at. Hopefully. Let's see if this will play.
Day one, I thought that was incredibly important. It was part of, dare I say, his legacy. And that was foundational for me. And I made that crystal clear with legislative leaders, and it was stubborn because it was hard. A lot of them, we'll see how they respond. I mean, you'll get everybody to answer, I'm outraged. But, I think it's important. And this slide was important to me. And so I hope that will be the spirit reflected in the next administration.
And maybe what keeps you up at night. You said that you hope that the state will continue its historic investments in, again, this coverage for undocumented immigrants, but is there any concern that
I'm concerned about that. That's an easy place for people to go. We made significant investments. Yeah, I mean, of course I am. I'll make a case for it. I'm making a case for it. That's why we didn't, we had to deal with reality, deal with the cards that are dealt. We had to slow down that growth, and we did.
You didn't slow down the illegal invasion one iota. You were cheering and been waving them in like Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton and everybody else. And Reagan, who signed the amnesty bill, and the Bushes, who couldn't get illegals in here fast enough, and you giving them health care and benefits and everything else. You didn't slow down illegal immigration one iota. In fact, you encouraged it.
But we'll make a case for it. We have universal health care in this country, regardless of pre-existing condition, ability to pay, and regardless of immigration status. We have it. It's called the emergency room. And we're paying on the back end sick care. I believe in universal health care. It was not, I ran on it. I did it as mayor of San Francisco. I ran on it as governor. And so
all these plans, Medi-Cal, Barack Obama, Obamacare, everything else was supposed to fix all this stuff at the emergency room. And not only did you ruin healthcare, the emergency rooms are still a disaster filled with illegal aliens and now vagrants. Where people who are legitimately have emergency, if you have a heart attack or you get in an auto accident, they're jammed up because these people are in there. All in you're doing, you said you were going to fix it, like you said with vagrancy and Prop 36 and the Tax Rich White Boys Act, and it never happened.
No one could be surprised about my point of view, and I've defended it. And there's a whole cottage industry out there attacking me because of that advocacy, and trying to balance all these concerns as I balance the budget, and trying to do it in a,
You did not balance the budget. We still have a structural deficit. We still owe the federal government at least $30 billion. You have not laid out any plan to pay it back. That was your directive 5 years ago or 6 years ago under the COVID con, just saying, give them all the unemployment money. We'll deal with it later. I want the bad press to stop. I don't care what it costs.
In a way that I think is consistent with my values and the values that we hold dear in this state.
Governor, on that advocacy, you mentioned just now that you did run on single payer when you're running for governor. There's a number of candidates now who are debating it's become quite a big issue in the current Democratic field, of which you have not endorsed. What's your advice for the next governor?
Well, seek first to understand before you're understood. CalRx comes out of our strategies. The first executive order I drafted comes out of our strategies to pursue single payer purchasing. We created a task force. We created a framework and a plan that was just highlighted, created a commission in this space. Party claims or some new idea and proposal that's coming out next week. Donald Trump. For 10 years, he's been talking about that since he came down the escalator. Nothing in this space. I appreciate and applaud what Nancy Pelosi was able to achieve and what President Obama was able to achieve, what President Biden was able to achieve in expanding the support, and what we're doing here in covered California that I think is next level, and what we did to advance even.
You've ruined the whole once greatest healthcare system in the world, and you want to triple down on the policy.
Further and beyond, but I do think the system itself. You're going to require, as I said, cannot happen without the largesse of the American people now in that respect. I just think you may want to have if that's the only strategy you have for healthcare, you may want to have a backup 8.3 or some odd million in the interest on this. And so it's real. And we've directed, there's some language in the budget specifically to direct our workforce agency on some creative strategies and solutions to address it. I don't want to leave, in the past it was just short-termism. It was just get the hell out of Dodge. And that didn't service the state. And so, but no, absolutely. Dodge. And that didn't service the.
So he claimed that the Supreme Court was racist and Trump. Couldn't find the clip. It was right there at the end there somewhere. Who unracist voting. You cannot redistrict congressional districts in the United States based on race. You cannot discriminate from one people to the next. Properly, he calls that racist. Again, your Jim Crow and all that, totally distorting it. Again, as I've said, those who shout racist the loudest are the real racists. They want to do everything by race because that's how they can put you in a box and that's how they control you. We gotta, as Herb Morgan has said here, un-F California, who's running for controller. Vote for Herb. Vote for Chad right now for governor. We got to get him, raise him up a bit. They're having another debate tonight. I think it's going on right now. Maybe we'll cover that tomorrow. Steve Hilton looks like he's going to be one of the top two. We got to get Chad up, knock Baccaria down. A few points. We need to push that whole thing with this disingenuous, oh, the media's got to back me. Oh, you're not going to ask me any tough questions? Wink, wink, nod, nod. KTLA 5, you're woke, right? That backfired. We got to make sure he pays for that. Shell of Paradise for Judge, she's or that. We'll have a different one up tomorrow, hopefully, as we roll through this. That'll do it for today. But as we usually say at this time, mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours. Why? You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
Have a great night.
You got it.